been 10 years of missed deadlines. A decade ago, South Africa began to switch our televisions from analog to digital, but the digital transition still isn't done. There have been allegations of corruption, infighting among stakeholders, and long drawn-out court battles. All of it has slowed South Africa's digital migration. So will the next deadline be missed as well? Let's ask the Minister of Communications, Nomvula Mokonyane. Very good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Why has digital migration taken so long? What is the problem?
Thanks for inviting us. Yes, South Africa is one of those that are lagging far behind. And one of the challenges has been a decision that was taken then to just have a one-size-fits-all of opting for the set-top boxes to deal with digital migration. We have since now put together an advisory council that brings all key role players in the sector and looking at a diverse kind of interventions. We've put together a project management team that is constituted by Trade and Industry, National Treasury, Department of Small Business Development, as well as the Department of Economic Development, precisely to make sure that we move away from all the hurdles that have been alluded to, but also to ensure that we bring expertise. We have appointed one of our own who has been in the broadcasting and communication sector, who has also project managed in some of our neighboring countries, and we do believe that with all the interactions that we have had, we will be able to fast-track and accelerate the process.
Okay, obviously this is a meaty topic, and I do want our viewers to get in touch with you if they've got any questions to ask you, and you can possibly help them along. Do you think we lost our competitive edge because of this delay?
We lost our competitive edge because we had an assumption that government can become a pseudo-retailer. It's not in the business of government to be the one that does the retail and, again, does not have a clear understanding of who stands to benefit on what is now in the realm of government through the distributions that have been done by the post office and so forth. But a lot of work has been done, such as in the Northern Cape, in the Free State, parts of KwaZulu-Natal, and to a certain extent, some areas in Limpopo. We do believe that we can be able to complete the Free State because of the cooperation now that we have together with the local authorities there and the training that is linked to public works in terms of technical capacity, the skills that are required.
I mean, it really seems that you are enabling it to start rolling out, and I should imagine that and frees up space and move away
from a one-size-fits-all where we just assume that it would only be government, particularly central government driven. We've brought in many partners and the private sector, retailers, producers, manufacturers, and including our research institutions, so that then we must adapt to new innovative solutions, because some of that we have as a country has become obsolete. And we definitely have to create new industries by making sure that we are at par with what is happening within the pretext of the fourth industrial revolution.
Are we behind Africa on this? Do we need to play catch-up?
We are behind many countries in Africa. We will be submitting a cabinet memorandum to the first cabinet post-recess to then give progress, but also to persuade cabinet to agree with us on a multi-dimensional kind of an intervention, but also not just looking at migration, but also expansion of the platforms, including the improvement of content, and that then goes with the release of the spectrum, so that then South Africa does not just deal with migration, but it also deals with expansion of the space.
Okay, you're raising lots of things there, the spectrum, which I really want to talk to you about. To get what you want now, you need 6.6 billion. I mean, is the Treasury going to be open to that?
Precisely the reason why we have to go back to cabinet, because fiscus is seriously constrained. This 6 billion may not even be what is needed now, because the calculations have always been based on the 5 million. Where we stand now, we do believe that with the interaction with many other service providers, we're far below the 5 million. And we may not need government to subsidize everybody who has been on analog.
Okay, I'm just wondering where that money is going to come from after Zuma's promise of free education. And I'm also wondering whether the Treasury can trust you with its purse. I mean, if we look at what happened at the Water Ministry, how are we going to get that trust? How are they going to hand over that money to you?
For now, nobody has found Nomvula Mokonyane guilty. or having stolen money. It has been allegations until to date.
Yeah, because I've got a litany of allegations here, and I'm sure you want to clear your name.
And they remain allegations, and I don't think ENCA is the platform, but I must say, I'm on record, that given an opportunity to present my case, I would be able to do so, because all the perceptions and the peddling of lies and misinformation will not necessarily help. I serve at the behest of the people of South Africa. I serve per a deployment, but of importance now, my view is this intervention on digital migration is not necessarily. Let me finish.
Okay, hold on. You need to clear this up, I'm sure,
yes,
in order to move on. Can you just tell us what is being done to clear this up? And then we'll move on to
what is being cleared to do.
What's been done to clear your name? I mean, where are we now?
I'm not sure. It's not me who has come out to say this is what I've done. I'm waiting for an opportunity to present myself.
Okay. All right. So now you've appointed a 12-member panel to deal with this, to look into the digital transformation. How are they going to work? What are they going to do now that the others weren't capable of doing?
It's no longer about how they are going. They've already started.
Okay.
Like I'm saying, we are beginning to get information that says we don't need resources, financial support that comes directly from the fiscus. There are many other interventions. That's work that has been done, and there's a box that has been ticked. Secondly, there's also a realization that says you need a multi-sectoral intervention, and that is what has happened. So it's things that are already rolling. And thirdly, the most important thing is that what has been out there was based on the strategy that was adopted then. But where we are now, we've moved beyond just the installation of set-top boxes. We've started, like in the Free State, where we have young people who have been trained through the CITAS, as part of the Public Works program, skilling young people. Secondly, we have also started to do door-to-door verifying. We are also linking with SASA and municipalities on the indigent, and it's work that is already happening. We have met the retail sector and the manufacturing sector, trade and industries helping us.
Let's go back to Spectrum TV. And if I can explain it simply, if my mom's watching us, I mean, it's basically a radio frequency, isn't it? And you get, you get video, it's the space that everybody wants, everybody's talking about at the moment. What are we going to do with what we have?
Well, what we need to do is to make sure that the release of the spectrum allows inclusivity and transformation of the sector, so that then it is not confined to a few. Secondly,
because it's expensive, isn't it, to get in at the moment? So
it is expensive because of how it is being managed, because it is made for those who can afford, and hence we have to look at different interventions where you don't just release the entire spectrum, but you must leave some for your own empowerment and set aside for inclusion of others who must be new participants. And you must also make sure that as you release, you also create new platforms, but you also make it compulsory that content has to actually move beyond what we have. And
what about auctioning it? I believe that that might be an option. I mean, is there not a risk if you auction it that, say, China wants to buy it, you're going to sell out to China? You'll never get it back again?
I know where you want me to come to say, is it auctioning or what form of release is going to take? I don't believe that we need a one-size-fits-all. I don't believe in the auctioning, because the highest bidder in an auction, it's the highest bidder that gets it.
Because you think we'll be cheap compared to other countries?
We need to make sure that it must be transformative, it must help to grow the sector, and most importantly, it must accommodate young and emerging as well as women, so that then it then helps to change this sector that has as yet to transform and have many role players.
I know you fancy diversification. I mean, how does this fit into your diversification model, you know, when it comes to TV station, when it comes to radio?
Not fencing, committed to it. I don't fancy it. And it's government's commitment to diversify. And this is an opportunity that we cannot actually miss. It is an opportunity that we, because we are in control, must then set the terms so that then it opens up.
Okay. What about Netflix, multi-choice, and what's happening there? I mean, Netflix, everybody wants it. It's much cheaper than multi-choice. Is this a case of the bigger player bullying the industry into getting what it wants?
There shouldn't be a big brother, but what we need to make sure is that the space must be regulated so that there is fairness. That is important. Secondly, the space has to have regulations that also appreciate and understand that we are moving from those historical practices in the sector. We are now becoming much more sophisticated, and technology has actually advanced. And it calls on those that have been historically in to adapt as well. And that should be the case. And I wouldn't want to here speak just comparing Netflix and multi-choice. We must appreciate that there must be competition and there must be diversity.
And level playing ground.
Through regulations.
Right. And are those regulations in place in order to make us more current?
ICASA is working on those issues, and together with Minister Kwele, we have had a session a month ago with ICASA, and we're quite certain that we are quite at an advanced stage where all these matters would actually be pronounced in line also with the amendment of our own policy environment, so that then our policy also must adapt to the demands and the new developments.
And that's where community radio, I should imagine, would step in and giving voice to those who don't have a voice. Community
radio, community TV, any form of communication at the community level, as well as creating new, in line with what is happening now, where people can even use their own instruments of telecommunications and stuff. We need sophistry. We need to be accommodative of the deaf and blind community as well, in terms of what we are throwing into the space. And most importantly, whilst people are creating wealth, we must take care of the unemployed, reskill them, the graduates, bring them into the pipeline, and increase our research capacity.
For all then, isn't
it?
Obviously
exactly
freeing up again that space so that people can get more involved. Should we talk about your role as head of communications? And let's talk about Cyril Ramaphosa, the president's announcement the other day about the Constitution, possibly changing the Constitution in order to expedite the land reform program. How was it dealt with in that way? What was your thinking when you I'm sure advised him to make the announcement after his meeting? What is the
decision that has been pronounced by President Cyril Ramaphosa emanates from a very protracted process that has been happening in our country, starting as far back as from the day the ANC was founded to date. And fast forward to the ANC Lekgotla that we held this week, and President Cyril Ramaphosa, upon the decisions taken at the National Executive Committee's Lekgotla, came out so that then nobody preempts and nobody actually distorts the discussions in the African National Congress.
Because people are saying that's political expediency, isn't it?
It is not expediency. It's about, I think what we need to appreciate is the consistency of the African National Congress. This was not something that is actually new. It was an assertion based on what everybody viewed when the ANC closed its conference in Nasrec and pronounced on these matters, and what the president of the country, who's the president of the ANC, reaffirmed, which is quite important. He said we will refer these processes to Parliament, which means the ANC will take these matters back to the parliamentary process and ensure that our views are heard, which are not actually off tangent with the popular view that is coming from the ordinary South Africans.
Let's go back to that platform. I mean, many people are concerned that this is another example of conflation of party and state. I mean, is he not benefiting as president ahead of the elections, making this sort of statement then? Obviously a very sensitive statement, late at night. People were concerned.
No, all of you in the media were camping outside Nasrec, and it was not seen to be partisan for everybody to have breaking news during the proceedings of the National Conference. I do understand those concerns, but I'm saying we must be consistent that a major decision coming from this kind of a summit that everybody spoke about, that we are locked in a summit, you needed the face of the president of the African National Congress, who is the president of the country, to be the one who first actually pronounces this. And as it has happened where breaking news, every time there's interruption of programs, had to happen. And I think there is nothing that the president has actually flouted, because even there he came out as the president of the African National Congress. Like we have seen other breaking news of everything that has broken the news.
I'm sure it's an easier job than working as head of communications under Donald Trump. But I mean, what are your challenges in your role, and where do you see yourself going to from here? What sort of message is it that you would like to get out there?
I think what we need to sustain is the Vision 2030, the National Development Plan, which is a plan that every South African has embraced through public consultations, the diagnostic review, and the commitment to move South Africa forward, working together with our people. And I think that's what we will want to continue, reassuring our people that the story of Thandeka, her future by 2030 would have changed for the better.
Can I stop you there only because we got a call?
Okay.
Paul is on the line from the Vaal. Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Hi, good day. I'd just like to ask the Minister, did she feel very relieved when she got appointed to communications as opposed to water affairs and sanitation? When she left water affairs and sanitation an absolute disgusting mess, and she must have been really relieved to not have to answer to all those mistakes she made in terms of our quality of water, but feeds Gauteng and many other places.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. One of the things that I look at whilst deployed in the portfolio of water and sanitation that collectively as the water family we have been able to do was to save South Africa from the severest drought that engulfed our country for a period of 4 years. We never had the loss of life. We never had diseases that were waterborne. We were able to live with the little that we had. And of course, some of the issues that have to do with the challenges in water and sanitation have to do with the fact that we survived that storm without a new rand, a new penny, or a new cent. We had to juggle around, and we needed to be given an opportunity to explain, but we must continue to thank South Africans. Of course, nobody has been appreciated by everybody, but there are those who appreciate who had nothing, and we had to make interventions, and there are those who would want to have the establishment remain unshaken. I look back, I don't regret, and I do think that there will be a need at some point for all of us South Africans to take the issues of water security quite serious. The new struggle now, post the drought, suddenly everybody has forgotten that we didn't have water. The new issue also in this space, it's this very issue about digital migration, the fourth industrial revolution. Some people think this is an easy department. It doesn't have money, but it has a responsibility to make South Africa remain connected and people being able to communicate. But you feel that South Africa,
excuse me interrupting, is at a turning point, isn't it? I mean, you feel that people do want ministries cleaned up. People want to start looking ahead now, don't they? I mean,
it has always been the case. I don't want to talk of the now. I think it has always been the case. That's why South Africans died for this freedom. That's why South Africans went to jail for this freedom. That's why we still say the struggle continues. Of course, no struggle doesn't have hurdles, and no program doesn't have hurdles. And we operate in a global environment and even local challenges of young people unemployed, of communities that are sparsely located, where it will take you 6 times the money you spend to connect water and sanitation in Horton compared to what you have to do in Jozini, for example.
Excuse me, we've got another caller, Mark from Boksburg. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Jane, how are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead. What's the question for the Minister?
It's in fact, it's Marco from Boksburg. I need to find out is this the same minister who said the rand must fall and then she will pick it up?
I heard the question. Let me explain.
All right, go ahead.
I never said the rand must fall. I said if it has fallen, we have a responsibility to pick it up. We all have to work hard to make our economy to thrive. We all have to skill everybody who is involved in the economic development. And I think that is what we should all be doing. We must be a nation at work. We must be patriotic. We can't wait for somebody, because even these investments are not manna from heaven. They require of all of us to work hard, to be patriotic, and most importantly, to have a skilled labor force that will not necessarily be redundant with the introduction of technology and other solutions.
Minister Nomvula Mokonyane, thank you very much for your time.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate
Thanks for
it.
inviting me.
Thank you. Globally, political and economic relations are in turmoil. So can South Africa negotiate its way out of simmering trade wars? Tonight we talk to the Minister of Trade and Industry, Rob Davies.